Mercedes may have made significant progress with understanding its capricious 2022 Formula 1 car, but it's still being caught out by what team principal Toto Wolff describes as mood swings. These are the fluctuations in performance during a weekend that continue to cause confusion, even if Mercedes is generally able to predict how competitive it will be at a given circuit heading into an event. Speaking at Monza, Wolff argued that the team has what he called the big conceptual understanding of the car, while admitting that these variations in performance are still unexplained. So with Mercedes now well advanced, with design and development work of its 2023 car, which must build on the lessons learned during a difficult campaign with the troublesome W13, can it be confident that it really understands its problems fully? And what if the mood swings of its current car reveal a gap in its knowledge that could carry over to next year? Mercedes has unquestionably made significant progress with its car, but even from track to track its performance has fluctuated wildly. For evidence of that, just take a look at the last 4 races. Based on the deficit to the outright pace, Hungaroring and Zandvoort were its 2 best weekends of the season. In Hungary, George Russell even put the car on pole position, although the underlying pace of the Ferrari was stronger on Saturday. But Spa and Monza were its 2 worst tracks in terms of how far off the pace Mercedes was, at around 1.7% off the quickest. Now, the Mercedes has consistently been stronger on race pace compared to qualifying, but the broad pattern was repeated on Sundays in terms of a bigger qualifying deficit, amounting to a bigger race deficit. In Hungary, Mercedes was reasonably competitive, while at Zandvoort it was quick enough to have had a shot at victory had its planned one-stop strategy played out, without the intervention of the safety car. But in Belgium and Italy, Mercedes was an also-ran, despite picking up top 4 finishes in both events. But these aren't the mood swings that Wolff is referencing. In fact, the big picture performance at recent races has been in line with expectations. As technical director Mike Elliott said, Mercedes has now built up the tools to have a pretty good idea of where it will be strong and where it will be weak. To find these mood swings, you have to look at performance within a weekend. At Monza, George Russell was at a loss to explain the reasons for what he experienced, running well in FP1, then struggling in FP2 on Friday. He was also happy with the car in Q1, but more uncomfortable as qualifying progressed. These are the kind of performance fluctuations that are confusing Mercedes. While the offset of qualifying to race performance is more easily explained and speaks of a team that has rightly focused on ensuring it has good Sunday pace, the car still appears to be a little too sensitive to conditions and perhaps also the way it works its tyres. Understanding the exact reasons for these mood swings is something Mercedes will need to focus on over the remaining races of the season to ensure it avoids being tripped up with its 2023 car. Mercedes has yet to commit to its car concept for 2023, although certain aspects will have been locked in thanks to the lead times required for such items as the monocoque and gearbox. Really, it's the aerodynamic concept that is key. As trackside engineering director Andrew Shovlin said at Monza, Mercedes is still not fixed on its concept for 2023 and it is still exploring different avenues. That's a challenge complicated by the tweak of the regulations, in particular the raising of the edges of the floor by 15mm. This is a measure that has been brought in to reduce the dangers of porpoising and bouncing. That rule change will have an impact on Mercedes, which has come up with a car concept that is optimised for a relatively narrow and low ride height window. Thanks to a combination of the risk of porpoising at ultra-low ride heights and the limitations in suspension travel of the Mercedes, holding it in that window is difficult. So when it comes to the aero concept, Mercedes will come up with a car that is able to operate at a wider ride height range and be less sensitive to bumps. That's all about the underfloor concept rather than the zero side pods design that has attracted so much attention. That doesn't necessarily mean Mercedes will persist with the sidepod concept, which restricts the potential for downwash that has been harnessed successfully by Red Bull, but it's far from the be-all and end-all. What matters is the way the interacting airflows under the floor are set up and controlled. Mercedes knows it hasn't unlocked all the knowledge about the problematic W13, and as Wolff says, the next couple of months are a crucial period in setting its direction for next year. Most importantly, he admits that Mercedes has not discovered what he calls the Holy Grail in terms of understanding, meaning it will continue to dig into its car and apply those lessons to next year. It's true that a bad year can unlock deeper layers of understanding and build the foundations for future success. And given how accomplished Mercedes is and what it's achieved despite a troublesome car this year, that's what might be expected to happen. But it's not guaranteed. That's why the work Mercedes is doing right now to understand the mood swings and performance fluctuations could be crucial in shaping the 2023 championship battle. While the priority for Mercedes has to be ensuring its 2023 car is as competitive as possible, it still has much to play for in the final 6 races of 2022. Remarkably, its consistency means it is still in contention to steal second in the Constructors' Championship from Ferrari. Mercedes is only 34 points behind Ferrari, difficult to make up but not impossible. Given the performance gap between the two over the season, for Mercedes to be so close reflects how much more consistent it has been, with 13 podium finishes to Ferrari's 14 and 30 top 10s compared to just 25 for Ferrari. Second in the championship would come with extra financial reward, but Mercedes is also hoping it can at least salvage a victory from the remaining races. Wolff even believes it might be possible to do so on merit, having come relatively close to doing so at Zandvoort. But given Mercedes has been hopeful it's on a path to getting back into contention for wins previously this year, going as far back as the breakthrough at Barcelona in May, and the fact there are only 6 races remaining, it's no foregone conclusion that there will be a chance of avoiding a first winless season since 2011. Both drivers are hopeful that a win could be around the corner, with Hamilton unsure of where Mercedes will have its shot, but optimistic that the car will, more often than not, feel like it did in Hungary and the Netherlands. Mercedes is even upbeat for what has historically been one of its weaker tracks, Singapore. Weaker, of course, is a comparative term, and for Mercedes, that means it's only won 4 of the last 6 races held there. Wolff argues that the low-speed, high-downforce configuration should suit it, despite the fact it's a bumpy track that will challenge the ride capabilities of the car. This could make Singapore a good test of the ability of Mercedes to predict its performance correctly, particularly at a circuit where it might have to compromise its ride height more than anticipated. Realistically, if Mercedes is going to win a race, there are other tracks down the line that would appear to be stronger candidates than Singapore, including Austin and Suzuka. However, in order to pick up a victory, it's going to require some misfortune to befall Max Verstappen and Red Bull. As Hamilton has pointed out, Red Bull's advantage makes it almost unbeatable. But what really matters for Mercedes is the 2023 car. A victory this year would be a nice bonus, but the priority is returning to title contention next year. The question is whether the performance fluctuations, those mood swings Wolff talked of, are hiding a bigger problem, one that could be unexpectedly carried over into next year. And that's a risk that you can be sure everyone at Brackley will be very well aware of and working day and night to avoid.